That was not my best clap.
Well,
It's okay. It does not need to be.
Yeah,
Right.
I slightly
So now-
missed my hand with the other hand.
just so we're clear, now the intro, after the complaint last week that it was a weak intro, is going to be about you having
Yes.
the weak clap.
Yes.
You've got a case of weak clap.
Weakest.
Yeah.
let's not call it that.
Should we at one point measure our claps to see, like, get some sort of like audio device that can measure the sound each clap can produce?
I do not want to measure claps.
I think we should not be measuring clap at all. I didn't even know you could have
No.
weak clap. That's a new one
Yeah,
for me.
no.
Well, I mean, having weak clap implies that you can also have strong clap. So there's something to shoot for.
No,
As a goal
I
to
don't want
obtain.
any.
So,
I don't
Richard-
really want any kind of clap.
You're shooting for the strong clap? Because I feel like the weak...
Here.
If I
Yeah,
have to have a clap of some kind, why not have the strongest?
I don't know.
That's
It feels
an
like...
interesting position to take.
Go big
Right,
or go home. It's the American way, and bigger is better in all things.
Wow, okay. Hey, welcome back to Even More Mashed Up. We are the pop culture podcast where two professors talk about, well, all things pop culture. I'm Alan.
And I'm Patrick, and I just like to say that if there are any wealthy businessmen that would like to sponsor this podcast and pay us around $25,000 to $35,000 for an episode, we will overlook any crimes you may or may not have committed.
The truth of the matter is, if you have committed a crime, we are very unlikely to figure it out.
That is also true. That is not the purpose of this podcast.
No, the chances of us actually bringing any kind of disrepute, very low.
Exactly.
know what?
Well, disrepute because of crimes you may have committed. I'm not
Well,
sure. You may
there
or
are
may
other-
not want the name of your business associated with us for other reasons, but
Man, yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't really want a sandwich meat sponsoring our show.
ooh, but what if it was like a tofu vegan,
I mean, there's got to be good sandwich meat, like
like
tofu
a,
is options
like
out
a
there.
vegan sandwich joint?
Like
if
a-
Eden wanted to sponsor us.
That's right. Or tofurkey.
Yeah,
I mean, because tofurkey
I'm
makes...
just
Well, tofurkey makes a lot of different kinds of fake meats.
Now that's and they're a pretty well established brand, so they've probably got the money.
Well, I feel
Even
like
more
they...
mashed up. Brought to you by
you never know.
Tofurkey.
They've got it. They've got to have money for like the small groups and the big groups and everyone all between.
Right.
Tofurkey presents Even More Mashed Up.
That rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
Doesn't it?
We should add that, irregardless if they sponsor us or not.
Do you think if we did that for a while, they would just have to pay us because we had been doing free
Like,
advertising?
fake it till
for
you
them?
make it. If
Yeah, they'd have
Yeah,
to pay
just-
us or they could sue us. I'm not sure which it is.
either way, they're spending money, so why not pay us?
Is Tofurkey an actual brand?
It is an actual
I
brand.
assumed it was
yes.
based on the way you
Yeah,
guys
okay.
are talking.
Yeah, so I actually bought some Tofurkey ham recently, like thin sliced, and put it in a sandwich, and it was really good.
Wait. Then that's not Tofurkey. That's Tofam.
But it
Well,
is
the
in
tofan
fact.
for the tofurkey.
I hear what you're saying, but it's the Tofurkey is the brand.
Right. I don't know. I thought Tofurkey was the thing as well. Like a tofu turkey is a Tofurkey, so a tofu ham would be a Tofam.
No, I understand that, and tofu, what else would there be? Salami would
Yeah.
be
See, it helps if
tofami.
you have these, or a tofalami.
That seems too long. I just like tofami.
It is. Tofami's not bad.
Yeah. It's got to be a
Tof-
certain number of syllables, otherwise it's not going to sell.
How about tofif?
Tof.
That's
You're
tofu
adding
beef.
syllables to. What
Wait,
was
try
That's
try to make one
tofu
for
beef.
bratwurst, and you find yourself in a lot of trouble.
Tofurst.
First, yeah,
Tofratwurst?
yeah.
See,
don't
he's
know.
trying to make a tofartwurst joke there, is what he's trying to
No,
Oh.
I'm just saying, like, it's
And,
hard to do. I'm
that's-
just saying it's hard to do.
do. No, I just did it. Tofurst.
That doesn't
Though, to be fair,
Doesn't
when you say that, I
suggest-
don't think of bratwurst.
exactly.
No, you
just
shouldn't be
sounds like
thinking
a-
of bratwurst because it's not bratwurst. It's tofu bratwurst or tofurst.
Yeah, it sounds more like your toe goes first. It doesn't work, I don't think.
No,
Yeah.
they all
or like a
kind of sound
nonsense
like that.
word.
But this is clearly a terrific
Anywho.
introduction. Like, if if the intro was no good, this is great because clearly we're talking
Yes.
about
Backup.
only murders in the building today, right?
Yes, the hit show on the Hulu.
It's a show about making a podcast, which feels like quite fitting for us.
Yes, we are in a sense like Charles and Oliver, which
So
raises
that
the question:
does in
which
fact
of us
raise
is
a
the
question.
Charles and which of us is the Oliver?
Boy, that's a hard one. I feel like Oliver has oh boy, I don't know how to say this. I'm going to let that one go. Who do you think is who, Patrick?
Oh, you're clearly the Charles, and I'm clearly the Oliver.
Why so? Because I mean, clearly, like Oliver's background in the theater is you.
Yes,
And he does have
Exactly.
a very kind of hands-on bossiness. Like everything has to be just right with him.
which is very you.
Well, I wouldn't say so. You just said Oliver was you.
Right, mainly because of the musical thing.
Yeah, but you have a fussiness to you too that I think could be Oliver.
Okay, Charles is the fussy one, not Oliver.
Oliver's very fussy about how
Charles
the
is the one-
podcast comes together, and he's very bossy, and he's always telling Charles what to do or say. I feel like that's you. I just kind of follow your orders on this show.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It's
Follow
100%
my
true.
orders. That is such a lie.
I am constantly
Name-
scheduling
name-
my viewing
name
schedule
one
around
order.
your programming.
Really? Have you watched Book of Boba Fett?
No, but I watched Hawkeye.
Have you watched Peacemaker?
No, because you told me not to. We're going to do a special podcast where I don't watch those.
I told you not to because you have so far refused to watch them.
So it does sound like you said not to. That's the most important thing.
I didn't tell you not to. I just gave in to your ultimate refusal to watch them. It would be much easier to talk about them if you had actually watched them, but given that you have not watched them, I came up with a solution, which doesn't feel like me imposing my will so much as me having to work around yours.
This is how I get gaslit all the time into talking about Hawkeye.
Oh, for God's sake. Gaslit.
So I have
You
a
are
different
not
question.
being gaslit.
I have a different question for you, which you're not going to like any
Okay.
better. When they take our
boy.
podcast and they turn it into a show, who is
Mm-hmm.
going to play us in the show? Like, who would you cast
Well, I
as
know who
Rich?
I know who you're going to want to cast as me.
I don't have any idea for you. I'm just wondering what you would think for Rich.
Really?
Yeah.
In all the years of saying that I'm Danny DeVito and or
No,
who's the other one?
I don't know.
not a suggestion in the anywhere in my brain.
Well, I mean that's the thing. I don't know if they could do a show about the three of us because that's a very male centric show. So we may have to gender flip a
Okay.
character.
All right.
And so if you and I are the Charles, that means Rich becomes the Mabel.
Okay. So
That's all right.
who would we gender flip
not against that.
to Rich? It complicates an already complicated
I'd say
casting
Amy
process. That's not bad.
Poehler. Yeah.
That could possibly work.
Yep. I could see that working. Yep.
I mean, she'd definitely have to dye her hair.
That just depends. Depends what level of reality we're looking for.
Rich, could you get Amy on the show next week so we could have her on and just kind of like see how she does playing you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
so-
could you
So not
contact
even
her?
as an interview guest, but you want her to basically audition for the.
Yeah, I,
Oh no,
she
she
can
doesn't need
She
to
could run
audition.
the
She's
board.
got the part. Yeah. Could you just ask her for her availability in terms of replacing you?
for life in general. Like not even as
Well, no,
a
just-
show.
just
we
for
need
the
to
show.
give up all
Yeah.
your success.
Just for the show. Just for the show.
You know what I bet? I bet
We
Amy
need to give up
Poehler
all your
knows.
success to be me.
I bet Amy Poehler knows not to set her microphone right up next to a fan.
No, I plugged the wrong one in. So I didn't even use the right microphone to begin with.
Sad.
Just digging yourself a deeper hole there. Hey, I've
So-
got some fun facts.
Oh, I had still a couple more questions. Could I just dig in a little bit more, and then we can do your fun facts?
Oh, I guess.
So what would the mystery
Otherwise,
about us
I would
involve?
be how we ever got a show.
Fair point. Then finally, we need a nickname for our diehard fans.
Mashers.
So when they start sitting outside in the parking lot at Mercy Hall, you think Mashers? That's not bad.
Mashers.
Mashed uppers?
Yeah, that's it. Mashers has a nicer smoothness to it.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Okay. And finally, what podcasts are you listening to at present?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like, when you listen to podcasts, what do you listen to? Are you
I'm
a true
listening
crime
to
guy?
No, I'm listening to the Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow podcast on Excalibur.
Oh, the one that you were on.
Yeah, but I've been listening to the episodes before.
Yeah. Do you
the
listen to
episode I was on.
anything? Do you listen to anything you've not participated in?
Well, I don't even listen to everything that I have participated in, so.
Because you don't listen to our show.
I was about to say, because you
Exactly.
clearly listen to our show every
Exactly.
single episode.
That's
Yeah.
the point.
Before it's even released.
All 170 episodes, I've committed them to memory.
Yep.
And yet, when we talk about them, you don't remember them. It's a funny
I didn't
thing.
say I committed them to memory well. I just said I committed them to memory.
Well, yeah. Yep, I don't think you know what that phrase means, but
Like copying the Mona Lisa with a crayon.
exactly. I guess we should go to some fun facts.
Here we go. All right, I've got fun facts, and then I've got a
You
fun
have
fact
fun
follow-up.
facts?
A follow-up?
Yes.
Ugh,
A fun fact follow-up.
it can't
I
be
don't
good.
like the alliteration.
Well, I can't complain about alliteration.
I think you'll like this one. So, according to Parrot Analytics, which I got this via Vulture magazine, they apparently track
Okay.
demand for streaming shows.
Okay.
So Only Murders in the Building, and so they've got a baseline of what like the demand for an average streaming show is.
Okay.
So Only Murders in the Building went from having 16 times the audience demand
Okay.
of an average U.S. show when it debuted
No idea what that
to
means.
well, it means that given the average demand for a U.S. TV show, the demand for this show is 16 times that number.
Okay,
when it
but
debuted.
quick question. That much I understand. But what's the average demand? Like what is
I don't know. They did not quantify that.
Is that like
by
one
the time of-
person?
No,
Because there's
but
so
by
much
the time of the
there's
finale,
so much on, it just seems like that number would be really low. But anyway, go on.
Yes. But by the time it got to the finale, it was at 37 times the demand of the average show.
Okay. So it picked up steam.
Yes.
It's a bigger number.
Yes, which
Yes.
brings up the question about the show resonating so much with people is what is it about Only Murders in the Building that made it such an in-demand show, one that significantly grew its audience over time?
Right. That seems like a reasonable question to ask.
Which I just asked.
Oh, you want me to answer it?
And thus await an answer, yes.
So
I thought it was one of those, questions you already had the answer to.
I do not
Right.
have an answer. I have thoughts, but I do not have an answer. But I was mainly bringing it up to
that feels like it's spitting out of fun facts, though, and into.
It is. It's a fun fact follow-up.
Oh, so are we done with the fun facts?
Yes.
Oh,
Yay!
this is the best fun facts ever.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me
I
give-
thought you would like the fun fact follow-up.
I would like to raise your fun fact follow-up with a fair or foul.
I would like you to just answer my question.
I'm going to with a fair or foul,
But that's someone else's answer. That's not your answer.
but it will be one that gets
Well, what
us
if he
to
agrees
our
100%
answer.
with their answer?
I feel like you ruined
Constance
the fun
Grady.
fact follow-up.
No, it's great. This is it leads exactly where I wanted to go, but I wanted to use a fair or foul to kick off the
Oh,
conversation.
well, if it leads exactly
on
where
this
you
topic.
wanted to go, that's fine then. Yes. Let's go to exactly where you wanted to go.
By answering your question, which is where you wanted to go. My want to go is subsidiary to your want to go.
I don't think it is. Feels
Wait,
like
so-
you are co-opting my wanting to go.
Boy, somebody is a cranky guy today.
Yep, somebody is.
So Constance Grady in Vox wrote,
Yes. Uh-oh.
what I can tell you about this show is that the vibes are immaculate.
Yes.
And for me, so that I'm not doing anything outside what I'm supposed to, I would say I thought that was really fair, that the show really is more about the vibes than anything else. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like the jokes tend to lean on tired boomer versus millennial gags.
For
the
goodness
show's
sake,
occasional
yeah.
stabs at formula breaking are more notable for their laudable ambition than for their uneven execution.
So you read the
Things
same
like that.
review. You read the same review.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah.
did, and had the exact same quote as one of my fairer fouls.
Yes. And so I think it's like,
So, yeah.
I think that's pretty spot on. Like it's not the best plotted show you're ever going to read. You know, it does sometimes rely on certain kinds of humor, but there is a kind of vibe to it that it was the kind of show I could watch and not have to, like, I could kind of turn my brain off for it. Mm-hmm. You could just watch Steve Martin and Martin Short work together, and they're just funny guys. And I appreciated
Yeah.
that they didn't lean too much into their like wild and crazy kind of Ed Grimley kind of personas. They could be funny,
Oh, yeah,
but
that would have
you
been
know,
bad.
it could make it a little more nuanced. And in that way, you know, it's I think it's why I liked it so much. It wasn't great television, but it was fun, entertaining stuff, and it felt very escapist to me. So that would be my answer, is that it had an escapism and a nostalgia in the old actors that really pulled people in. Do you have a better theory?
I don't know if it's a better theory. I have a different theory.
All right, let's hear it.
Well, I think in terms of, I mean, I agree with you that it is a very kind of escapist show and you know, just kind of something to you know, watch and not really have to think about much. But I also think about, you know, it as within the genre of detective fiction.
Yeah, make it a little more scholarly.
And particularly sort of classic detective fiction, or kind of the golden age of detective fiction in the early 20th century with Agatha Christie and writers like that. You know, they kind of feed a need in people for a world that seems to make sense. You know, those stories sort of tell us that. Is someone blowing their nose?
Alan, is that you?
I don't hear anything.
I was a whole bunch of like someone blowing their nose over the.
Or like scraping something, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't hallucinating that.
No, Rich heard it too.
Yes,
Yeah.
both Rich and I heard it.
I don't know. Yayu just climbed up on my lap. Maybe that was it.
Oh, that was probably it. Was probably Yayu climbing up on your lap. Yeah.
It's hard to tell. I don't hear anything else.
Yeah.
But I've also got my headphones
Anyway,
on, so maybe there's something going on outside that I can't hear.
Possibly.
Possible.
Like Yayu climbing up into your lap.
Anyway,
Anywho, so in kind of the way that detective fiction sort of reassures us that there's a kind of logic and order to the world, that it can be figured out, that sort of thing. I think the show might be kind of tapping into a need for that, heading into year 3 of the pandemic and everything else that's going on.
that makes sense. There's a certain kind of out and about in the city that feels very anachronistic in some ways, given the pandemic. So, yeah, I mean,
well, none of them were wearing masks.
Yeah, the show is not particularly like realistic in the way you're talking about, but I think I can see that for sure, that people are watching it and it feels very comfortable because you know they're going to figure it out by the end, and then you know there's going to be a twist and they've got to do a season 2.
Yeah, but that was one of the things I didn't really like about the show was the way in which you had sort of the opening little teaser that ends up being the teaser for actually the next season, which kind of it had the effect of kind of making this season feel like it was all kind of set up for whatever's happening next season.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't have that feel, although like I'm not a big flashbacky kind of guy. But I see that, but it didn't feel that way to me. But then again, I liked that I could come home from work and just turn off the brain.
Yeah, no, it definitely sort of, I think, provided that.
Yeah, as I was putting together like comments for the show, I realized I only had so much to say about the show. Because there's only so much that goes on in the show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot that goes on in the show, but in some ways I felt it was a little bit overstuffed.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, so when I say there's not a lot that goes on, I just like there's not a lot that I found particularly demanding of conversation. But yeah, I mean, it is in some ways it's probably a little overstuffed if you wanted to criticize it.
Yeah.
So do you have a particular topic you'd like to start with, or?
Well, what I mean in terms of since it's a sort of detective true crime sort of thing, what did you make of the ultimate revelation of who was the murderer? Oh, and spoilers ahead.
Oh,
the premise of the show might be spoiled right here.
Yes.
For my tastes, it was a little twisty in getting there, but I know that's part of the genre, and so you kind of have to go around, I'll take all the false leads and kind of, I thought it was a fine kind of resolution. The way in which Nathan Lane and his character get built into it, I thought was interesting and somewhat surprising. Should I be thinking about it more in terms of like disability and that kind of thing?
Oh no, that wasn't the revelation I meant. I meant who was the ultimate murderer in the show.
Oh, yeah, like Vicky
had it like that because Nathan Lane's character ends up being a red herring.
But it was an actual murder.
Well, but it didn't look. It looked like an accident to me. It didn't seem to me like he pushed the girl over the edge. It looks like they were just struggling and she lost her balance.
Well, I know somebody did 10 years in the clink for it, man. So, yeah, I don't know. Like,
I mean, that'd be still like what, manslaughter? You were still kind of responsible for killing the person, even if you didn't actively plan it out.
I agree with Rich. I feel like there is some kind of crime involved there. I mean, obviously they put somebody in jail for having done it, but
well, yeah, but that's because they thought that what was it? Oscar, I think was the guy's name. They thought he actually pushed her off. I thought.
Yeah, but
as opposed to just having her accidentally fall
with no evidence whatsoever. Anyway, but we're probably getting distracted. I don't know. I found the way in which they disguised her crime to be a little over the top. Like it's so that she kind of stabs herself.
Yeah.
To create the impression that it wasn't her it felt a little overwritten to me, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How did you feel about
Yeah,
it?
I was mixed on it for two reasons. One is that, particularly as we got, later and later into the series, I kind of figured out it was her just by the fact that she was one of the 5 actors identified in the opening credits.
So you're using meta clues.
And particularly that she's listed she's listed in the credits for the very first episode, and if memory serves, she doesn't actually appear until the second episode.
At
and
least,
so I was like,
yeah.
well, why would they have her credited for the first? And I was like, that means she was involved in the first, so there was that. And then the other thing I didn't really like that it kind of fell into a very kind of gendered trap of, she's killing people because she got dumped by a guy.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. The motivation felt very kind of stereotypical and not great.
And that kind of goes back to where I started, where I wouldn't say it was like the best written show that I've watched. That was not the reason to watch it. But yeah, I mean, That's fair enough, I suppose, that it was kind of the classic, woman scorned.
Yeah, it felt like that was a little. I was a little disappointed that they didn't come up with something more original than that.
Yeah,
or less stereotypical.
Yeah. And the scene where she tries to poison Charles Hayden is. I thought it would be funnier somehow.
Yeah.
Just thought it would be funnier, and it just but. Yeah. Again, I thought the show was better in kind of building in the middle, and then at the end was not a letdown, but it didn't keep building in some ways.
Yeah, well, and it built in, like the introduction of Jane Lynch's Zaz character.
Right.
I thought that was completely, like, there has to be another way that you can get Charles to go to Jan's concert rather than having to bring in, like, this whole other character. Like, that just seemed really kind of random and not terribly... It didn't fit into the show and kind of took me out of the show for a bit, because that felt really forced.
Well, the casting of Jane Lynch in general, I did that for me. There were moments in the show where I felt like they wanted to have certain guest stars on the show.
Mm.
And it just...
So besides Jane Lynch, who else was that for you?
Well, initially I felt that way about Nathan Lane, although, like, it changed as time kind of passed. But I guess it would... Mm-hmm. By the way, was Zaz the name of the Gotham murderer?
Yes, that's the guy the serial killer that kills people and then carves tally marks into his body to keep track of them.
Ah, there you go.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
In the comics, I don't know if he actually did that in Gotham. In Gotham, he was just kind of creepy, stereotypical serial killer dude. I don't know if he actually...
Yeah, in like the video games, that's kind of what he comes off as. Is just like, I'm like a villain that's a serial killer, and then I think that's it.
No, in the video games, if you're talking about the Arkham series, he actually does carve the numbers into himself.
Does he?
Yep.
Man, it must be...
Yep.
Okay, maybe I just missed that part. Well, you don't like talking about video games?
I was going to say, it was an interesting transition. So actually the Sting worked pretty well. The, like, Tina Fey.
Yeah, that was funny when Sting actually showed up. I was like, that was funny.
Yeah. But, maybe I didn't need the Tina Fey.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I thought the Tina Fey... Well, and that was another moment where, because we see her doing the podcast that's actually going to be based on what happens next season. When we see her doing Only Murderers in the Building, right. Again, that's gesturing towards next season. So that was another thing that I was like, they see. I'm wondering what they've got planned for the second season, because they really foreshadowed a lot of it.
Yeah,
or foreshadowed it a lot, I should say.
For sure, agreed. But there are just moments where I felt like the casting kind of overtook the show.
Yeah, which has me worried, because they've already announced a number of the people that are going to be appearing in Season 2.
Yeah.
And they've got Cara Delevingne, Michael Rapaport, Shirley MacLaine, and Amy Schumer are all joining the cast, which I'm worried, if this season was a little too heavy-handed with the casting, I'm a little bit concerned what that bodes for next season.
Well, for me, it's like if they can maintain the vibe of the three, it'll be okay. But yeah, I mean, this is not like high art achievement in some ways. Speaking of which, could we talk about could we talk about Martin Short, or do you have something else to say on the plus side?
Oh, I was going to say on the plus side that, since so much of this series was framed by what's happening in Season 2, my hope at the very least is it means they've got a really good story for Season 2, because you got to think that like a lot of shows have a really good first season and then have to figure something out for Season 2 because of that success. It seems like, at least I'm hoping, that Only Murders in the Building has a good idea for the second season, because it seems like they've already thought about it, figured it out. I hope
you're right.
Because there's only so many. there's only so many murders that can happen in the same building before the premise of the show starts to seem a little bit
You
exhausting.
say that, but season 12 when there's 12 dead bodies.
Well, there's
Just
still
wait.
what Stranger Things 4 is about to come, right? So,
Yeah, but
And I know-
they've announced that they're ending with Stranger Things 5.
but they should have stopped with
Oh.
number 1, right? Is the problem. So,
Well, they'll end with 5, and then the spin-offs happen.
oh boy.
Oh, did they say there are going to be spin-offs?
Well, let's wait. Let's see how much money
okay.
season 5 makes.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the problem, is that, it does good enough, they're going to keep going until it doesn't.
I feel like
Any
it's
show.
not doing as well as it used to, but maybe that's just my growing cynicism
Yeah,
about
well,
the show.
yeah. So, but yeah, so that I'm hopeful that maybe it avoids Only Murders avoids the sophomore slump, just because it seems like there was a lot of building towards that story in
Right.
season 1.
Yes. Yes. So, hey, how about that Martin Short? Anybody? No?
What I mean, I've to be honest, I'm not the biggest Martin Short fan.
Oh, I have Martin Short fan questions for you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not.
Well, then
I'm
let's
not a
answer
Martin
them.
Short fan, but you can go ahead and ask your questions.
So, according to TCM.com, and I quote,
Turner Classic
Shorts.
Movies.
I don't know.
Yes, exactly that.
Okay.
Short's appearance on SNL back in the mid 80s. I think he had debuted in like 84, if I remember correctly. Short's
Okay.
appearance on Saturday Night Live helped to revive the show's fan base, which had flagged after the departure of Eddie Murphy, and in turn would launch his successful career in films and television. Now, I watched Saturday Night Live in the mid 1980s. I remember some of the Martin Short bits. I wouldn't have thought of him as the guy that was reviving the franchise. How about you?
I would say that I don't really watch Saturday Night Live on a regular basis. But I mean, the only thing I really remember is you already mentioned his what is it, Grimley? What's the character's name?
Ed Grimley.
Ed Grimley. Yeah, like that's
Yep.
the only character I remember, and not one that I really remember all that fondly.
Yeah, so I went and I typed into the Google, best SNL Martin Short characters. And Ed Grimley was the only one that I recognized.
Yeah, I mean that's the only one I can think of.
Well, apparently he did impressions of Jerry Lewis and Katharine Hepburn, which sound vaguely familiar to me.
Okay.
And there was one where he did a synchronized swimming routine.
Oh, I do remember that. I do
Yeah.
remember the synchronized swimming one.
But
Yeah.
I
That was
watched
that's a
some
funny
Saturday
bit.
some Saturday Night Live in the 80s. I don't remember that as being like a real peak time.
Yeah, no, well, and to be honest, I think Steve Martin's kind of humor is much more my speed than Martin Short's.
Really? In what way?
You seem to connect with him a bit more like as a sort of everyman kind of.
With Steve Martin as an everyman?
Yeah, kind of like.
Huh.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like
Martin is probably a bit more cerebral than Martin Short, I would say.
So you like your
Martin
comedians
Short's-
cerebral?
Is that really all that surprising?
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
Short is he's a lot of shtick is sort of what his comedy is, and I'm not the biggest fan of shtick.
Right. Although Steve Martin did kind of build his career on King Tut.
He did, but I kind of I like the post SNL Steve Martin more than the SNL Steve Martin.
Well, he certainly built a more varied and probably nuanced career than Martin Short,
Yeah.
would be fair to say. So
Yeah,
would you
maybe that's a better way. Yeah.
would you disagree with Mike Hale then from the New York Times? Here's what he writes about Martin Short. Short gives a master class in Only Murders in the Building. But it's not a class in acting or comedy so much as a seminar in agelessness and professionalism. and in Short's unmatched ability to turn self-absorption into a virtue.
Interesting, because when I think about the show, I think that, you know, some of the material takes some of the life out of what's otherwise a slight but charming comedy, and doesn't do any favors to Martin, whose performance is a little dour and closed off, or to Gomez, who looks uncomfortable and occasionally terrified.
So perhaps we should have like split reviews before we came.
Possibly.
Because
I've got 4 of them, and so far you've come up with 2.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, what was the gist of Hale on Short?
So that it was a masterclass, not in its acting or its comedy, but because it was a seminar in agelessness and professionalism, and his ability to turn self-absorption into a virtue.
I mean, I guess I'll give him credit for at least that last part, in that he does take, particularly at the beginning of the series, what is a fairly self-absorbed and largely unsympathetic character, and does make us sympathetic to him.
Yes, although that's kind of a very well-tread path.
It is. I mean, I don't know that. Well, as you were saying, I don't know that there's anything terribly new in Only Murders in the Building.
No, I agree. I found Martin Short kind of charming. I obviously you have a strong disinclination towards the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I found a certain charm towards him.
Okay.
But there's, I mean, you know, when you're having Martin Short, you kind of know what you're getting, and so even a muted Martin Short performance still has kind of Martin Short elements to it.
So
but
Martin
yeah, I
Short
thought he was fine.
Is always there in Martin Short. Okay, well, how about Selena Gomez? Since you just mentioned her in kind of the review, that she looked a little nervous.
Well, she's actually admitted that she was really nervous.
Yes, I saw that as well.
There was an interview where she was really, I think, because working with Steve Martin and Martin Short would make anyone nervous, because, you know, they're such institutions.
I feel as if working with Martin Short would not make you nervous. I think you'd be like, you know, whatever. I may as well be doing a show, you know.
No, I'd still be nervous to be working with Martin Short.
Would you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, no, there was something that I don't know. There was, and I don't know what to attribute it to, if it's the interpretation of the character, but there was a kind of stiffness to how Selena Gomez portrayed Mabel that wasn't entirely inconsistent with the character.
Right. Agreed.
And so it was hard for me to tell. I was like, is that the character, or is that some of her own nervousness that she's sort of admitted to kind of coming through? But yeah, it was kind of It was interesting in that there were times where I was like, I can't tell if she's acting, or if that's just or if that's just something more natural to herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it did generally work for the character. So, but it was kind of yeah, there were moments where I was like, is that the character, or is that more her?
Yeah.
Bleeding through.
It's not a good question, you know, to have to ask. So I assume you read her interview in the LA Times then, since we've read everything the same thus far?
I did not.
Okay,
I
excellent.
did not read her interview in the LA Times.
They asked her about preparing to play Mabel, and here's what she said. I'm just curious your kind of response. Quote, I watched a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's not at all like Mabel, but she wants to solve the crime, understand what's going on, and she's a badass. I felt that Mabel was a bit like that. But I didn't do too much in the way of preparing. Uneasy laugh. That's kind of nerve-wracking now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I don't know how much there is to prepare for Mabel. I mean, she's what did she say? She's 28.
Yeah.
In the episode, which I think when Selena Gomez, when this was filmed, I think she was like around 27, 28, so she's right about the same age. Living in New York. So, I don't know that there's... there would necessarily be a lot to prepare for in terms of the role.
Right.
It's not like she's doing like a massively different character.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm kind of curious about... I'm sure you were a big Buffy fan.
Yes. Well, I actually came to Buffy late. I was an Angel fan first, and then got into Buffy.
But so being kind of a Buffy fan, I was interested in the comparison between Buffy and Mabel.
Yeah, I mean, I can see some of it in the sense of, Mabel has her group of the Hardy Boys versus Buffy's sort of group of Scoobies.
Right.
So there's some similarities there. But yeah, I don't know that I see a lot of it. I guess maybe because one of the things that stood out to me, I think it was in the very first episode when Mabel's walking down a street in New York, and I can't remember if she gets catcalled or something. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember what her response to it was, but I just remember watching. I was like, "Yep, that's what it's like to be a woman these days." And so I think there's some maybe overlap with that in terms of, because obviously Buffy was about kind of using, demons and vampires and whatnot as metaphors for kind of adolescence. And so there might be kind of an overlap in the sense that there were elements of Mabel that I think speak to or could be interpreted as speaking to some of the things women face today.
Okay, interesting.
So I think there's some similarities there, but I would say by and large they're pretty limited. Mabel doesn't jump out to me as a Buffy, except for that they both have names that people generally don't name their daughters anymore.
That's a fair point, but probably not what she was shooting for. I've got a bigger question for you about Selena Gomez. On a scale of 1 to 10, what was your fandom for Wizards of Waverly Place?
I guess like a 1 in that I've heard the title but never actually watched the show.
Never? Like not a single frame?
Yeah, never have watched it. Which I guess this was like her first TV show since Wizards of Waverly Place.
Right. And, Vicky and Hope have very fond memories of Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yeah, I think I vaguely recall Hope in particular mentioning it at one point, but that's about as far as it goes.
I thought it was fine, but I thought other Disney Channel shows had better supporting casts.
Well, you were a big Zack and Cody fan, as I recall.
Zack and Cody.
Is it The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody?
Oh, The Sweet Life. Yeah, no. I put together a list of my favorite Disney Channel TV shows.
Oh, good Lord.
And I thought we should talk about those briefly, right? So how would you rank your favorite Disney tween TV shows?
Okay, they're all gonna... I don't watch any of them, so they're all gonna be like 1s.
How's that? Okay, so
You didn't watch
clearly...
any of them?
Clearly the best of the Disney Channel stuff was Good Luck Charlie.
Never watched it.
No, what that is.
Oh, so good. And then I don't even have anything in second place.
So good.
Then, you work your way down the list. Wizards of Waverly Place is pretty high because then you got, Hannah Montana.
Never watched it.
Sweet Life on Deck, which was better than Sweet Life.
Never watched it.
Jessie was not particularly good.
Yeah, glad
I probably have
then.
Liv and Maddie too low. Austin and Ally.
Never heard of that.
Sweet Life.
Nope.
All right, well,
These shows all have a very similar titling patterns.
They do. It's almost as if Disney is a corporation.
It's Disney.
It's just churning out product as opposed to art.
Yeah, it's
Disney's
weird.
It's
It's weird to see them, churn out that kind of prepackaged material when they have such innovative things coming out of the MCU.
Exactly. It's hard to imagine that a corporation that's making the high art of Disney Plus superhero shows and MCU movies can't do better for the tweens. It's hard to. It's hard to. So. How do you put that puzzle together? Like, that's a mystery.
Yeah.
I'm sure scholars will wrestle with that 100 years from now.
Yeah.
How could one company produce such disparate fare? Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about Steve Martin. I thought he was good in this, but not better than Martin Short.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely better than Martin Short.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely better.
I feel like you've got a bias against Martin Short.
That is entirely true, but because of that, he's better.
Do you not like short guys?
Well, then I would turn into a kind of self-loathing person, so I don't want to say that.
No, because you've clearly demonstrated repeatedly that you have no self-loathing.
No, I'm very high on myself.
Oh, no, your self-esteem is through the roof.
Yep, definitely.
Incredible self-confidence.
Yepper, that's me.
Devil may care attitude, taking the world by storm.
I liked Steve Martin. Again, it's not a show that's really asking a lot from him in terms of the performance.
Right.
But again, Steve Martin does what Steve Martin does, and I enjoy it, so it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. You know what I got to thinking about is that Amy Ryan has put together a career where she's gotten to play the love interest of both Steve Martin and Steve Carell.
That's true.
And to imagine how successful you would feel if you've played that kind of position in a show with both of those comedic geniuses. It's a pretty career pretty good career she's put together.
Yeah, I mean she's worked with some really good people.
Yeah, for sure. What do you got? What else do you have? I'm down to only a couple of fair or fouls at this point.
No, well, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Boy in 6B episode. The one that's told from Theo's vantage point and kind of thinking about this show's representation of disability and sort of what it tried to do with that. I found really interesting. I mean, for the book project that I'm working on right now on George Perez, obviously Perez, one of the creators of Cyborg from the new Teen Titans, and there's a lot of discussion of Cyborg in relationship to disability studies.
Sure.
And so some of that, and I was reading some of that while watching Only Murders in the Building, and so the episode that's told from Theo's vantage point, I thought was really interesting.
No, I agree with that. In many ways, the relationship that he had with his father was, I thought, actually had some nuance and complexity in it.
Yeah.
There were moments, though, what put me off that episode a little bit was the way in which, I don't know how to say this, and I don't mean to say it the wrong way, but the way in which his disability was kind of weaponized and it became kind of like the superpower that allowed him to kind of unlock things and walk through the show in a way that I don't know how I quite feel about that, honestly. In particular, his ability to read lips, right? And to pull out a pair of binoculars and be able to look all the way across the courtyard and pick up information that way. It left me feeling a little uncomfortable about that portrayal. And in a portrayal that I thought overall had a lot going for it. That it just rubbed me the wrong way. Am I being too sensitive?
No, I think because I think that's one of the things that I hadn't thought about that, but now that you mention it, that sort of falls into the idea in disability studies of the super crip.
Yeah.
The idea that sort of having the disability and overcoming the disability sort of makes them stronger in some way. And so I think in a way, I think that's I hadn't thought about that, but that is kind of a problematic aspect of his character, that it does kind of turn into kind of this super ability that you know, not only does he overcome it, but overcomes it in such a way to exceed it, I guess.
He's like Daredevil, right? Like he catches people who are behind him in the at the funeral home.
Yeah,
because it's like he has this kind of like enhanced senses or whatever. So like I thought there was a lot that was good about it, but there were moments that I
think that's the other, because the other thing that you see a lot there, that I'm seeing a lot in the disability stuff that I'm reading, is where it's Mitchell and Snyder sort of talk about how disability has been traditionally used in media, particularly visual media, and they talk about their notion of the narrative prosthesis, which is that disability is a narrative prosthesis in the sense that it's used either as a defining character trait, particularly in terms of villainy. If you think that you know, villains particularly in the past have always been sort of, you know, they're evil because they're in some ways disabled or deformed or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, and then other than that, it becomes a metaphor or symbol, and thus ignores the realities that people with a disability face.
Sounds like I came up with
more about.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying, so in a sense that narratives rely on disability as a metaphor or as a representation rather than as a reality.
Yeah. So I feel like I really hit it out of the park with that one then.
Well, but I think in other ways the episode tries to do the exact opposite of that, in that, you know, it tells the story largely from Theo's point of view, and that it tries, I think, to give us I think it's mixed in what it does.
Yeah, and that kind of was where I started. I think there's a lot that's well done in it, but that one aspect just, it left me feeling a little cold.
Yeah, which of course raises the most important question.
Yeah.
Which is, how much better did Hawkeye do with representing deafness than Only Murders in the Building?
I have to say, it did marginally better.
Oh, it did massively better, I would say.
Well, of course you would.
Someone's clearly cleaning their dishes in the background.
Oh, Vicky might be cleaning dishes in the background there. She apologizes, but we are making dinner. Well, making dinner. Not exactly we, but
yeah.
You know, that's
one
just,
of you two is doing a great deal more
right now. Yes, but soon I shall be off the couch, and it smells like we're having General Tso's tofu, which is going to be really quite good. So
that sounds good.
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
maybe
Vicky
General Tso's would like to sponsor the podcast.
I don't know if there is an actual General Tso, but perhaps.
Is he
perhaps
is he like the Colonel?
Well, yeah, I think he's more like the Colonel. Yeah.
Okay.
But it is smelling good.
So I thought to circle back to Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, was that what we were talking about? Yeah.
I thought we were. I thought, you know, I give it credit for what it tried to do. I think the other thing is that you ultimately have, you know, the deaf character ends up being, you know, one of the villains of the piece, which again kind of, you know, not that his deafness is his villainy, but he still ends up being kind of a villain.
Yeah.
Or a criminal in the series, and so it doesn't quite get away from some of those other tropes.
Right.
That Mitchell
but man,
and
that
Snyder
puts you in an
talk about,
impossible
so.
position where like the deaf person can never be the villain. It's just, we live in a complicated creative world, man.
Well, I don't know. I mean, not to go back to the point, but you know, Echo was certainly an antagonist in the series,
right?
But I don't think the show didn't reduce her to villain. You know, she was an antagonist and
Right.
maybe by the end sort of moving into more of a protagonist.
Well, see, right, because she's going to be redeemed. If you're like complaining about shows that are functioning in part to set up what comes next, right? Like that redemption arc is very important as it launches Echo into her own series.
Yeah. So so that was something that I talked about, and
Yeah.
the other thing that I sort of noticed about the show or found interesting was kind of the way, and maybe this was a little bit earlier on, but the way in which it very much spoke to a kind of isolation and solitude that all of the characters suffer from, and kind of a modern condition of isolation and even kind of alienation.
That's a
know,
nice
that
point.
seemed-
Yeah.
You know, kind of fairly. I think, particularly all three of the main characters suffering from it. You know, Martin Short's character suffering from it because of more of his own making than maybe the other two.
Right.
But yeah, it would kind of the way in which, and again, something that maybe I think speaks to how the show is tapping into the present moment, in that there's a lot of people feeling sort of isolated and in solitude.
Don't we all feel
these
disconnected right now? You know what fixes problems like that, though? Podcasts like this that bring people together.
Ah, yes.
A community of mashers. I feel like mashers
go.
must have
Mashing
some
together.
kind of colloquial meaning, though, that we probably should be aware of.
We should look into that, but for now, I think it's safe to use it.
Yeah.
Well,
For now,
do you-
everyone
so
be a
that's how-
masher.
That's how you think it works. Well, if I Google it, I get a masher's recipe from Alton Brown. That doesn't seem so bad.
There you go.
Anything, it's
Apparently,
it's
there are
nice
little
possible
superhero
tie-in.
toys called superhero mashers.
Okay, we just don't have to say superhero.
There are
Yeah.
potato mashers. There's
that
only
makes
one
sense.
thing
Makes
we really have to do is check the Urban Dictionary real quick.
I was just gonna say, maybe let's not do that on air.
Oh boy, no, it has to do with
Yeah, let's not do-
inappropriate sexual attention.
Yeah, let's not. So let's
Why?
see. Did you
It
have any
means-
other fair? You said you had other fair or foul. I'm curious to see if they duplicate any of mine.
I'm going to say in Urban Dictionary, it's a man who attempts to force his unwelcome attentions on a woman.
Okay.
So I feel like if
Well,
we go
that's
with mashers,
unfortunate.
we're really going with a fairly misogynistic
Yep. Okay.
name. How about
we
the
should probably go with something else then.
emus? Because we are EMMU.
No, we're not gonna. No, that's terrible. And I'm pretty sure the school owns that.
Yeah. Well, they
That's
only
cool.
use one M though, right? Don't they?
Yeah, they're not a flightless bird.
Well, but then it's not emu. It's more we're emu.
Emma, whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't work either.
Well, could we do a play on emo?
What would the play be?
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be emu.
Yeah, it would
Like,
be,
we would need a play.
It would be emu again. Yeah, that doesn't really.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I've got one less fair or foul for you. Because
Okay.
a couple of them that
Who's
I
it
have,
from?
we've already covered. It's from IGN.
Oh, I don't think I looked at that one.
Oh, excellent. Quote, Only Murders is a gem of a show that can be both serious and playful. It can draw you in with warmth while also pushing you out a little bit with self-referential silliness.
I'd say 50% fair.
What's the fair part?
Well, in that it's playful, but not the other thing they said about it before leading up to playful.
Serious?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it did tackle some serious issues, but I don't know that it really felt like all that serious a show like this.
It tried to, yeah.
Yeah. And then what was the second thing was it said
Pull
something
you
about
in
being
with
pushed
warmth?
out of the show.
Yeah, it pulls you in with
Yeah.
warmth but pushes you out with self-referential silliness.
Yeah, see, I don't know how much self-referential stuff there was. It was definitely I think warm is a nice way to describe the show. There's
Yeah.
a warmth to it.
And, we've been pretty critical of the show, but I loved its warmth. And I think there
We
was a
have been,
power
which
in
is
it.
shocking considering that it currently has 100% with critics and 93% with audiences on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think our fans would say that we're probably a little more discerning than most of the Rotten Tomatoes folks.
Even all of their top critics have certified it as fresh.
Ooh, now you're looking at the top critics.
Yes.
Nice. I taught you something.
Yes, I figured out how to do that now that you mentioned that was possible. So,
I go, that's all I've got for Only Murders in the Building. You got anything else?
Yep, that's all I've got. I've circled back to fun facts, so that's a good day for me.
It is. I feel like we
Well,
landed
as long
it
as
on.
you had a good day.
Yeah. So
When you-
will you be watching second season of Only Murders in the Building?
Oh, I think I'll watch it for sure. How about you?
Yeah, I'll probably watch it. I don't know that it will be like gotta watch it the day it comes out type viewing for me, but you know, it was an enjoyable little show. I'll watch it again.
It was a romp, is what it was.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with a romp.
Couldn't we all use a bit of a romp these days?